Well, everyone's just in the ranked waiting room together, huh? We only got a couple more days to go before rank finally comes out and we can get our competitive spirit back. However, even if things aren't competitive right now, it doesn't hurt to prepare properly so you know what you're doing when it's finally out. Welcome back to our new ProGuides video where we'll show you the top 10 tips to succeed in Season 2. But before we begin, remember to click the link below in our description to see more in-depth guides, builds, and ways to win your next games. There are many courses designed by pro players within the top 1% of the game to teach you the meta and how to effectively climb up the ladder. So if you want to get to the top 4 of your games, then go to ProGuides.com today and we will see you there. Alright, let's just jump right back into it. Our first tip of the day is prioritize economy. With player damage being nerfed significantly, you have a lot more opportunity to go on a losing streak early game and to save gold. If you're the type of player who likes to win from the start, that's more than okay too. Just be sure that you eventually hit 50 gold. Don't be the player that hyper rolls every round who wins early game but falls off dramatically late. Moving on to our second tip, position against enemies' comps and use hex spot correctly. Figure out who is your main tank and your main carry. Depending if the hex spots are at the front of the map or back is where you can decide who deserves it. Be careful though, as Zephyr is popular and most players will simply Zephyr a hex spot, or they'll have assassins jump to the back hex spots automatically as most players will have their carry there. So make sure to scout. Although the extra mana or health is nice for your carry, it's not worth laying into their assassins, berserkers, or Zephyr. Move your carry out of the way in those scenarios. Also, make sure that the hex makes sense. Ocean buff on your Thresh isn't going to be as good as Ocean buff on your Brand. Or a mountain buff for your Twitch late game is not going to do much. Check out our in-depth positioning guide if you want to learn more. The last thing to be aware of is we notice a lot of players who would avoid putting on a third item on their carries because they want the hex buff. An item is always better than the hex buff. Why settle for 30 extra starting mana when you could have had a Seraph's Embrace on your Malzahar? On to the next tip, which is to have a strategy planned beginning from early game. Life becomes so much easier when you have a clear strategy in mind. You're not wasting gold by having a billion units on your bench, and you know what items you're going to need for carousels. Obviously, you should be smart and adapt accordingly to what's in your shop. If 3 Olaf shows up, let's be honest, you shouldn't pass that just because you want to force summoners. However, always having a plan and knowing what you can pivot into will make your games go smoothly. A general tip is to always have a plan at each stage of the neutral rounds. So before you start a game, start already thinking, which comp do I want to try playing? For example, if you want to try Ocean Mages, then aim for a Spatula or Tier during first carousel. Then start reconsidering once you get to Crumbz. If it seems you don't have a single Vladimir, Talia, Syndra, or LeBlanc, maybe the Mage's life is just not for you. Reevaluate what you have and what champions you need. Let's say you have a level 2 Scions and Mundo. In that case, your strategy could be 4 Glacials and 6 Berserkers. You have a decent start for it, and it's one of the stronger compositions in the meta. However, you should be open to pivot that into a 3 Berserker, 4 Shadows build, or 3 Berserkers, 3 Poisons, and 3 Predators. Having one main plan and at least 2 others that you know can also work if you don't hit all your ideal units is great. Try to reevaluate at every neutral round. The key point in this patch is that player damage was nerfed significantly. So honestly, your early games is really more about econing well. This gives you a lot more time to strategize and slowly find everything you want in your ideal comp. We noticed that most players are actually able to force a comp much easier than before due to less damage being taken. However, this brings us to our next tip. Scout to make sure no more than one other person is going for your composition. Although games are easier for you early, Riot did lower the champions available in each pool. This rewards players who go for an unpopular composition. If there's 4 people going for a Poison Predator build, chances are you're just ruining it for each other. This will delay the time for each of you to get your units to level 2. Eventually, 1 or 2 of those 4 people will be luckier than you and find their Singed and Twitch first, leaving you to be at the bottom 4. Always scout at Krugs and Wolves to see what builds people are going for. If you're significantly further in your build compared to them, then good for you. On the other hand, if you're about the same pace, or especially if you're behind, start thinking of different options. The best way to be able to do this effectively is by doing the next tip, which is to be open-minded and to try out different compositions. When the patch came out, we saw so many players who were closed-minded to different builds. It hasn't even been 2 weeks since the newest patch came out, but even within the first few days, we saw many people saying, mages are awful, or light is pointless. And now, before you know it, they're actually synergies that are part of some of the best compositions. Some synergies are definitely weaker by themselves, like Ocean, but pair them with mages or summoners, and they suddenly shine that much more. Another great thing about trying out different compositions is that you'll learn how to position them better, and it also trains you as a player to be able to pivot into these compositions if you want to. Even if it's just playing it once or twice, you get a much better feel for it. This works great, especially with our last tip where multiple players are running the same composition. Even a slight variation would make a huge difference as you're not competing over the same units. Try out different compositions and practice doing different variations of the one you already love. After you tried out almost every synergy, our next tip is to master 2 to 3 compositions. When it comes to a composition, it isn't so simple as simply knowing all the units you need. Items, positions, and counters are also very significant. We recommend at least playing a comp 10 times in order to really understand it. Playing at least 10 times allows you to go against different synergies to properly test the effectiveness of what you're doing. Also, every composition requires a different strategy. Some strategies are hyper-rolling early around Crumbz, while others may have to wait until Wolves. Playing a comp 10 or more times allows you to perfect this timing and also gives you experience in handling different scenarios. 3 people are going for your comp? Learn when to hyper-roll earlier. Most people have assassins? Practice positioning your carries around them. Perfect your composition so no matter what you face, you'll know how to get to number 1. When we were playing Ocean Mages, we did struggle with Poison build, but after multiple games, we were able to learn certain positioning techniques that were able to grant us the win. Moving on to tip number 7, figure out which synergies go best with the map. Sure, one composition may be going great for you and you can play it on any map. However, finding out which ones work best on a certain map can give you a significant advantage. For example, Iceborne Gauntlet on a cloud map is plenty insane by itself already. Put it on a Jax whose ability is already perfect for the item and you have an insane start. Try discovering more stuff like this so while others are forcing predators on an ocean map, you have summoners and mages utilizing their amazing abilities quicker. Another thing to figure out, which brings us to our next tip, is to figure out which items are crucial for your carry starting from the second carousel. We mentioned this a little bit in our prior tip telling you to plan ahead. Items win you the game more so than you think. Gauge what you got from your neutral rounds and also what are must items for your carries later. For example, let's say you have a tier on bench and you're going for a Berserker's game. In this scenario, you can go for a Giant's Belt to make Redemption, which is a great item early or late, or you can aim for a Sword or Negation Cloak to give a Bloodthirster to your Olaf later. A lot of people forget to think ahead and will randomly pick up the cost of this unit in the carousel. Strategize ahead and let your items win you your games. So adding even more to strategizing ahead, remember to also determine what level you need to make your composition work. For a Lights comp, leveling isn't as much of a priority as it involves hyper-rolling for many low-cost units until they're tier 3. On the other hand, a composition like Poison receives a huge power spike when you get your Singed and Twitch. This means that you have to remember to level throughout the game properly in order to be able to find these units in a timely manner. Level 7 is normally the level you want to ideally hit to get the main core of the composition, and level 8 and 9 is needed to perfect it. All in all, make sure to plan. And now to our last tip of the day, which is to immediately start rank when it comes out on November 20th. Some of you may not know, but this season will be a hard reset. All players will start back off in Iron. The only difference is that players with high rank last season will have a bit higher MMR, which allows them to gain LP quicker. However, it's very minor. We recommend you start the rank season as quickly as possible if you're a competitive player, because when rank comes out, there's still some period of time before a hard meta is defined. Although this season's goal was so that you can play more comps than before, there's going to be 2 to 3 comps that dominates the ladders that everyone will try to force. So rather than waiting until weeks later where a comp like Void Assassins appear, it's best to try it out early. The season gets harder the longer you prolong, especially for higher elo. Cutoff for challengers jumped significantly from 300 to 570 LP in the last month. If you're a low elo player and want to avoid playing against challengers and grandmasters from last season, simply wait a day as most of them will immediately climb to gold within the first day or 2. Additionally, practicing in rank makes a big difference than practicing in normals as well, since most players are trying much harder, so itemization and positioning isn't as random. So make sure to play rank as soon as you can. Alright, that's it for today's video. Which tip did you find the most helpful, or what is your top tip to share to others? Are you guys excited for the new rank season? Let us know in the comments below. We plan to release a lot more content for the new rank patch, so like and subscribe, and we will see you all next time.